Hey everyone, welcome back to Great Northwest Weaponry. This is Thomas, and today we're looking at a gun that does not get nearly enough love. The quote-unquote Turkish Mauser Ankara M38. Now, quick disclaimer, M38 is not something the Turks ever called these, and it really is not in reference to a single agreed upon design. It is a collection of features that make the gun an M38 quote-unquote short rifle, of which not so short if you ask me, but you know, it is what it is. Some people just don't really know what short actually means. This thing is actually quite huge, but this one is a K.Kale marked gun, and we'll get farther into markings when we get over to the table, but why I bring it up now is K.Kale is fairly significant, and generally speaking, a K.Kale marked receiver was made in Turkey. If it's not, then it has probably been rebuilt off of a Gewehr 98 receiver. The Turks used all kinds of Mausers, various different models, all the way through from the late 19th century through the most of the 20th century. They were using all kinds of cannibalized Mausers, mostly from Germany, either that were left behind in the First World War or that they bought later on, or that they took from surrendering soldiers. Because in World War II, the Turks did not officially declare for anybody. They maintained armed neutrality. They were courted by both the Allies and the Axis, but they refused every offer and intended to remain neutral, and they did through the entirety of the war. They would, however, offer asylum to Germans and Bulgarians and Romanian allies fleeing Russia, usually at the expense of, sure, we'll give you shelter, but leave that beautiful Kar 98 or VZ-24 in that pile right there so we can turn it into one of these. Also, another thing to note with K.Kale marked guns, the vast majority of them are terribly mismatched. You will never see a K.Kale with a matched barrel and receiver. And there's some debate as to why that is. Some people think it was intentional. Some people think it's because the barrels, which all the Turkish barrels are a short shank barrel. Some think it's because they took the barrels off of a different gun and then put them on K.Kale receivers, so the barrel would have its original marking from whatever gun it came from, and then the K.Kale receiver would have its own marking. This isn't really known, and this is partially because stingy old Turkey isn't telling anybody anything about them. Nobody knows a lot of things about these. There's a lot of, you're going to probably hear repeated more than once by me over the course of this video, we don't really know for sure why this is this way, because Turkey won't tell anybody anything about anything. They're very much the ever so quotable, I don't know nothing about nothing type of thing going on. You're not going to find an awful lot of information about these outside of, like, very certain markings people have deduced what they mean. And a lot of that has taken a lot of time, and then translation from Turkish, which I'm going to warn you right now, I'm going to be murdering some Turkish pronunciations later. I don't even have the faintest idea how to pronounce Turkish words. I can't even fake it. So when I start telling you what these markings mean when we go over to the table, prepare yourselves. If you're Turkish, I sincerely apologize for what I'm about to do to your language. And while we're on that note, let's go ahead and get going to the table. So there's primarily one thing we're going to be looking at here is this here crest and all the letters involved therein. You see there's a lot of letters. This initial TC, and again, I'm about to start really massacring a beautiful language, so I apologize for this. But that translated to English just means Republic of Turkey. Originally it's going to be something to the effect of Turkiye Cumhuriyeti or something like that. I'm going to write it out over here, and I'm going to do that with all these because, again, my pronunciation of these words is going to be really horrible, and I apologize for that. Then you've got the ASFA. Now, that is Askari Fabrika. Maybe a little bit easier of one to say, but that just means military factory. You'll also see on the bayonet an ASFA. So that's how you can usually tell your Turk bayonets is on the right side will be that ASFA. Get that pen out of our way. Don't know where that came from. Then you've got Ankara, which is just the city. The K.Kale factory is just outside of Ankara. I think it's just a little ways to the east of Ankara. But K.Kale means, and again, rough pronunciation, Kirikkale, Tufek, Fabrikast, of which just is a state-run factory to the east of Ankara. As I said, there was another factory that made these. You'll see some that say ATF here, and or it might not even say it, but ATF is just another state factory. That's Ankara Tufek Fabrikast. So those are your primary markings, and then you've got, of course, as it is a Muslim nation, you're going to have your crescent and a star. You might have crescents stamped in other places, like in the case of this one, there's a crescent on the bolt. I've seen them with crescents on the barrel rings. They're not always consistent. Like I've said, this is not something that was a 100%, all of these are exactly the same. There are differences here and there in some. For instance, as I'd said earlier, most of them that are K.Kale are the receiver was produced in Turkey for the most part, but sometimes you can obviously see underneath this crest an original German designation for it, of which means that it was rebuilt and, as I'd said, cannibalized into one of these M38s, which is mostly just a term that has been given to this gun by collectors to distinguish it from one of the many other variants of Turk Mauser. Bolt extraction, it's a piece of cake. Pull back, pull that lever out, and you go. Just like, any other Mauser from the Gewehr 88 on. And you can have straight bolt on pretty much all these. I've not seen one with a curved bolt. Every one that I've seen has been a straight bolt. That may not be consistent across all of these. There's a lot of variations to be had. Another variation I've seen a lot of, for instance, is the cleaning rod. This is an original cleaning rod that you can thread this out, and this gun is import marked. Virtually all of them are. But it's threaded in somewhere back in here. So you just turn it counterclockwise to get it out. But this one has a brass one. I've seen 2 with brass ones, and I've seen like 6 with steel ones. So again, no consistency there. Both are correct. It's just what it is. These are interesting in finding out where all the parts came from, or what guns they originally belonged to, is either a chore or impossible. But it's definitely fun to shoot, and it's just chambered in your standard 8mm, so your 8mm Mauser. So let's go ahead and shoot it some more. K.Kale, or Kirikkale, as I said before, I don't really know the pronunciation, but they made these guns from 1940 until 1946. They made about 250,000 of them, a whole 250,000 of these guns. And serial numbers from 1940 to 1946 are linear. They start at 0 and end somewhere around about 250,000. They also made them in 1939 in fairly limited numbers, and the serial numbers on the gun seem to be borderline random, or maybe entirely random from 1939. We, again, don't know why, because the Turks have not released that information. Please let us have that information, Turkey. I beg you, I beg you, I beg you. I want to know more. It kills me being literally unable to find something out about these, or any of my guns for that matter. Anytime I run into a block, and it's just mildly aggravating, where it's like, okay, well, info on that doesn't exist. I guess I'll just move on with my life being thoroughly flummoxed. But I've got another 5 loaded. This is your standard wing style safety. So the gun is loaded, and now it is ready to fire. I did notice also there is another crescent stamped on the safe side of the safety, so I hadn't noticed that previously. Here we go. This gun is accurate, guys. I think I started off the video saying something to this effect, but these really don't get enough love. They're cheap. They're not usually that hard to find. Like, depending on where you are, accessibility of them might be fairly limited, but if you find one, You're not going to be spending an arm and a leg for it, and it's a cool milsurp that you can get pretty cheap. And again, if you just want a good shooting Mauser for not that much money, you could definitely do worse. This is definitely worth the purchase, in my opinion. So this is another gun, by the way, quick shout out my friends at the Warfront. It's another gun that I picked up from them. So if you can look them up online, the Warfront Militaria and Museum in Portland, Oregon. They have a lot of cool stuff. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's been Thomas, and I'll see you next time on Great Northwest Weaponry.